Hello there and welcome to World News Program, coming to you live on All 24 News. I'm your host, Knifa Zachary, and up next are the top stories. 113 Palestinians were killed in 13 new Zionist massacres in just 24 hours, with Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis being hit hard. Also ahead, Al-Aqsa Hospital is at risk as Zionist siege tightens and paramedics are in grave danger of becoming new targets of occupation forces. Also coming up, Amnesty International exposes Israeli occupation, saying they are denying medical aid to Gazans, and Palestinian government urges UN action, condemns Zionist plan to move Rafah crossing. And Algeria sounds alarm at AU urging halt to foreign presence in Libya and internal reconciliation. The details after the break. Well, hello again and welcome to the details. First off in our news, in the past 24 hours, Zionist forces carried out 13 new massacres in Gaza, resulting in 113 Palestinian deaths and 205 injuries. The Ministry of Health in Gaza reported difficulties in rescuing victims due to restricted access for emergency crews. And on Monday, 8 Palestinians, mostly children, were killed in a bombing in Zawaida. The city of Khan Yunis also faced heavy bombardment, while 2 hospitals remain under siege, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. The death toll from Zionist aggression since October now stands at 27,478, with 66,835 injured. Still with the Zionist atrocities and the recent massacres, Zionist forces carried out another heinous butchery in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza Strip, killing 30 Palestinians. The occupation artillery relentlessly targeted large areas east of the city and bombarded the Nusayrat camp with several shells. The story by Osama Ayadi.
For 122 days, the unbidden Zionist assault on Gaza continues without resolution, inflicting widespread destruction. The latest wave of strikes on the region of Deir al-Balah in central Gaza by occupying Zionist forces resulted in a new heinous massacre, killing over 30 Palestinian civilians in a relentless onslaught of air and ground attacks over a 24-hour period.
We were targeted, me and my wife. Then we were displaced from a place to another until we arrived to Deir al-Balah, the central area. It was claimed as a safe zone, but it was not safe, and we were also targeted. They bombed a house next to our house.
Gaza's government media office confirms the recent strikes in Deir al-Balah hit homes, directly affecting civilians, mostly women and children. Rescue teams rushed in, facing a heartbreaking scene with body parts scattered everywhere. Even Al-Aqsa Hospital turned into a crime scene following the deadly strikes, while several people gathered to say goodbye and mourn their loved ones before laying them to rest.
We were targeted in Mina and we escaped. They asked us to go to Deir al-Balah. When we came to Deir al-Balah, we were also targeted. And in the Nasser region, we were also targeted. Where should we go now? Tell us, where should we go? We are suffering. Where should we go?
Reports unveil a disturbing situation at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Health workers, patients, and displaced Palestinians find themselves trapped and completely terrified as Zionist snipers killed at least 7 Palestinians nearby.
There is only destruction and killing of children, men, women, and the elderly. They have no mercy. This is a terrorist state. This is a Nazi state. I swear that Nazis are more merciful than what they are inflicting on us. Look what they have done to children.
Gaza's media office asserts that the international community and the U.S. administration bear responsibility for the ongoing campaign against Palestinians in Gaza, which it said goes against international law. With unremitting Zionist hostilities, there is no refuge for Palestinians in the besieged Gaza Strip. The United Nations acknowledges the impossibility of creating a safe zone, yet world powers have taken no actions to halt this genocidal war, claiming Palestinian lives by the minute.
And as you followed in our top stories, Gaza paramedics face constant danger as their colleagues are martyred and dozens are injured in Zionist bombings. Rescue teams have become now targets for occupation forces, jeopardizing their lives. Here's Zahra Fajani with the story.
As the ruthless Zionist war machine continues to spread chaos and destruction in Gaza, the valiant and dedicated Palestinian Red Crescent Society and paramedics strive to save lives amidst the increasingly dire situation marked by strained resources and critical medical shortages. That's not all. In fact, as the PRCS paramedics are engaged in a desperate race against time to save lives, they themselves become the new target of the criminal Zionist forces. Their genocidal weapon didn't spare anything on its wake, destroying even their headquarters in Jabalia. Elsewhere, the Palestinian medics are facing similar challenges as an overwhelming number of casualties keeps on falling as a result of the Zionist war of extermination in the Gaza Strip, coupled with the grave lack of medical supplies.
Our resources are very limited. When we talk about the capabilities of ambulance vehicles and the medical supplies and equipment they should carry, the supplies we have inside ambulance vehicles is all we have. We don't have any storehouses. Our storehouses are either besieged, shut down by the occupation, or maybe burned down.
Amidst the daily fighting, the task of the medical personnel at this makeshift field hospital is hampered by repeated targeting of their facility, along with their initial daunting mission of tending to cases that surpass the capacity of nearby hospitals.
This medical point was created after the siege of hospitals, including Nasser Hospital, Amal Hospital, and the hard access to them under the current events. We deal with the cases under the very critical conditions, daily fighting, targeting the field hospital more than once, and dealing with cases that would be even hard to treat in some of the nearby hospitals, so they get transferred to farther hospitals. And that imposes bigger challenge on ambulance vehicles and those who work at the field hospital, given the tough situation.
Palestinian paramedics bravely save lives amidst peril, showcasing remarkable resilience on Gaza's humanitarian front. The brutal Zionist crimes targeting civilians, women and children go beyond moral limits. Even hospitals face relentless attacks from the occupation forces, taking aim at the injured survivors and rescuers themselves.
Still with topical news, Amnesty International has confirmed that Zionist forces intentionally denied medical assistance to injured Palestinians victims of lethal force. The organization, in a brief statement on Monday, highlighted 4 cases where illegal lethal force was used, occurring in 3 incidents over a month last October and 1 in November. This resulted in the unjust killing of 20 Palestinians, including 7 children. The Palestinian government urged the UN Security Council to intervene and halt the ongoing genocide, calling for an immediate end to the aggression. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh appealed to the Red Cross to resume rescue efforts and disclose the fate of 6-year-old Hind Rajab and the ambulance crew attempting her rescue in Tell al-Hawa. Shtayyeh also provided updates on the outcomes of the Gaza aggression, now entering its 5th month.
أطلب من الصليب الأحمر تكرار الجرائم في غزة تدخل شهرها الخامس.
Gaza's crimes persist into the 5th month despite the International Court of Justice decision. The death toll nears 100,000, mostly children, women, and the elderly. The Security Council is urged to act to stop the genocide and endorse immediate cessation of aggression.
الوقف الفوري للعدوان.
Mohammed Shtea also stated that the Zionist entity is attempting to relocate the Rafah crossing, underlining it as an Egyptian-Palestinian matter. He pledged to reopen it if the Zionist occupation authorities choose to close it.
تحاول إسرائيل نقل معبر رفح إلى مكان آخر.
Israel is trying to move the Rafah crossing to another location. We say that the Rafah crossing is the gateway to the Palestinian-Egyptian border, and it's an Egyptian-Palestinian affair. We have had an arrangement. We've had an agreement with the European police since 2005 to manage the crossing. Even if Israel replaces it, it will remain an Egyptian-Palestinian affair, and we will reopen it if Israel closes it.
And at Russia's request, the UN Security Council convened to discuss the recent US strikes on targets in Iraq and Syria. And during the emergency session, Algerian permanent representative to the UN, Ammar bin Jama, labeled the Palestinian cause as a cornerstone to resolving the crisis and called for doubling efforts to stop aggression on Gaza, emphasizing the need for an immediate ceasefire and addressing the root causes through dialogue.
I thank
the Middle East stands at the precipice of collapse. The recent airstrike targeting Iraq and Syria over the weekend are likely to further exacerbate the already precarious situation. It may potentially lead toward a further escalation, and in this context, we reaffirm our steady support for the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and security of both Iraq and Syria. In light of these critical circumstances, we urge for restraint and avoidance of any escalation. The region cannot bear the burden of additional tensions, and we firmly believe that force is not and will never be the means for peace and stability.
And that was actually the intervention on the latest airstrikes on Iraq and Syria. But now let's have a listen on the matter related to Palestine.
The Palestinian question stands as the cornerstone for this endeavor. From the outset of aggression against the Palestinian people, particularly in the Gaza Strip, my country, Algeria, on many occasions sounded the alarm on the risk of regional spillover. Regrettably, the situation has evolved into a devastating reality, compelling us to redouble our effort to halt the escalation across the entire region. The initial stride toward this goal lies in an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
Meanwhile, Spain pledged €3.5 million in emergency aid to the UN Relief Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, on Monday. The funding suspension by several countries has put UNRWA's crucial work at risk. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez, in a parliamentary address, described the agency's situation as desperate, cautioning about the potential paralysis of its humanitarian activities in Gaza in the coming weeks.
En tercer lugar, España es referente.
Still with topical news, escalating tensions grip the Middle East as the UN Security Council urgently addresses recent US airstrikes in Iraq and Syria. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak defends airstrikes in Yemen as self-defense, while Tehran issues a stern warning against direct American attacks. Here's Islam Said.
The UN Security Council convenes to address the recent U.S. airstrikes in Iraq and Syria. Responding to Russia's call for an urgent meeting, tensions persist in the Middle East as the United States plans additional strikes against what it labels as Iran-backed groups in the region. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak defends airstrikes on Yemen's Houthis, calling them self-defense against Red Sea attacks, with a commitment to safeguard British lives and interests.
And that's why we've acted, again, in self-defense, in a proportionate way, and together with our allies. I've been clear that I won't hesitate to protect British lives, British interests.
Tehran has issued a stern warning, stating it will not hesitate to retaliate against any direct American attack on its soil. This comes after the White House did not rule out the possibility of striking Iran directly, escalating tensions between the two nations.
Iran has shown that it will not hesitate to use its capabilities to give a response that the aggressor will regret. Others have already seen the capabilities and the power of the Islamic Republic and will calculate 100 times before any bad action.
Yemenis are condemning the U.S.-British airstrikes, labeling them as brutal intervention in regional affairs and characterizing the actions as aggression against their country.
The U.S. airstrikes are not only barbaric, but blatant. The United States and Britain have been assaulting Yemen. This is an aggression.
China reiterated its opposition to actions jeopardizing country sovereignty, referring to recent U.S. airstrikes on Iraq and Syria. Spokesperson of the Chinese Foreign Ministry urged calm to prevent escalation in the complex Middle East situation.
Syria and Iraq are sovereign countries. China opposes acts that violate the Charter of the United Nations and infringe on the territorial sovereignty and security of other countries. The situation in the Middle East is highly complex and sensitive. China urges the parties concerned to earnestly abide by international law, exercise calm and restraint, and avoid further escalation of regional tensions, which may even get out of control.
Amid all these regional tensions, an Iraqi resistance claimed drone attack targeted a U.S. base in eastern Syria, which left 5 members of the Iraqi resistance dead. According to local sources, the strike follows the U.S. retaliatory attacks on Friday night to Saturday.
And in a different news story, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has reiterated Algeria's stance, urging an end to all military presence in Libya and the withdrawal of mercenaries, regardless of their name changes. Speaking through Algerian Prime Minister Nabil Arbaoui at the 10th session of the African Union High-Level Committee on Libya in Congo, President Tebboune called for external parties involved in Libya to support this constructive approach, emphasizing the need for respecting Libya's sovereignty. He emphasized that a lasting solution can only be achieved through a path that strengthened national sovereignty, allowing Libyans to take control of their own affairs.
أجدد الدعوة لكل الأطراف الخارجية المعنية بالشأن الليبي.
I renew my call to all external parties concerned with the Libyan issue in order to unite on this constructive path and commit to respecting Libya's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the independence of its decisions, as any final solution to the crisis will only be achieved through a solution that preserves the principle of national sovereignty and in which the Libyan brothers take charge of their affairs and preserves their inherent right to their country's wealth and its management and exploitation in a way that guarantees them stability, development, and prosperity.
President Tebboune also warned of the prolonged Libyan crisis due to foreign interventions and polarization between national and foreign powers, leading to serious repercussions.
The Libyan crisis continues, presenting various challenges due to interventions and the polarization between national and foreign forces. Environmental disasters have intensified the suffering of Libyans, wary of ongoing political division and delayed peaceful resolution. Despite this, the floods of Derna, the catastrophe in the east, the humanitarian solidarity response exemplify the strength of national unity, proving that geographical and tribal affiliations won't hinder achieving a cohesive national fabric that surpasses all divisions and difficulties.
And on the same occasion, Algerian President urged Libyans to overcome challenges by rebuilding institutions, exercising their right to choose representatives, and progressing towards elections and national reconciliation.
The brotherly Libyan people should define their future and overcome the current blockade through reconstructing the legitimacy of the Libyan institutions and their unification through the consecration of their right to choose their representatives and its legitimate aspirations to recover security and stability.
And in another African matter, the African Union calls for prompt presidential elections in Senegal after President Macky Sall postponed the February 25th vote to an unspecified date. Concerns arise over a potential political crisis as Senegalese police use tear gas and violence to disperse protesters opposing the election delay. Here's Salman Asib.
Senegal's parliament is convened to debate President Macky Sall's proposal to delay the February 25th presidential elections for up to 6 months, sparking a crisis. This session comes after violent protests in Dakar, where security forces used tear gas and arrested a senior opposition figure. Ahead of the legislative debate, tear gas was again used to disperse an opposition rally near the parliament. International concerns are growing over the unfolding political turmoil in Senegal.
That's why we want all the people of Senegal to come here and to protest peacefully, we say, so that this awful ambition will not take place in this country. We deserve freedom. We have been a peaceful country, democratic country, and this president is not allowed to take our freedom just for free.
They're planning on keeping the power for another 6 months, but it's just a beginning. It's just a beginning. They're gonna go on and on and on and on. We don't know. So we just everything we want is a fair election. Election. That's all we want. We don't want anything else. That's it.
In response to escalating tensions, Senegal's government shut down a private TV station for incitement to violence and imposed restrictions on internet access due to hateful messages. Motorcycle movements in Dakar were limited and security was heightened after violent protests.
They are planning on keeping the power for another 6 months, but that's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. They are going to go on and on and on. We don't know. All we want is a free election. That's all what we want. We don't want anything else. That's it.
The African Union, ECOWAS, and the US have called on Senegal to promptly hold presidential elections following President Macky Sall's recent postponement. With no new date set, there are appeals from France and the EU for clarity on the election timeline. Opposition leaders denounce the situation as a constitutional coup, claiming it undermines democracy. President Sall attributes the delay to a disagreement between the National Assembly and the Constitutional Court over rejected candidates.
And in France, shortly after being appointed Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal faced his first motion of censure, filed on Tuesday by the 4 left-wing groups in the National Assembly before his general policy speech. This no-confidence motion, according to the left, aims to address the fact that the government, with a relative majority in the Assembly, did not seek a vote of confidence. The motion of censure was rejected by the Assembly on Monday. And in the UK, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak declared on Sunday that Northern Ireland is headed for a brighter future with the revival of devolved government after a 2-year deadlock. During his visit to Northern Ireland's Air Ambulance headquarters in Lisburn, he commended the positive move, emphasizing the importance of local politicians focusing on priorities like public services. All the way to USA now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, joined by 14 Republican governors at the Mexico border, renewed plans for new barbed wire, blaming President Joe Biden's administration for inadequate border security. Abbott pledged to take all necessary measures to prevent illegal immigration, with Republicans strongly criticizing Biden for leaving borders open. 25 Republican governors commit to supporting Texas in this effort. Let's follow the news in brief with Sofian Kenturi now.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stated on Sunday that President Tayyip Erdogan plans to address a new arrangement to facilitate Ukrainian grain exports through the Black Sea in discussions with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, during his upcoming visit to Turkey. At least 10 police personnel killed on Monday and 6 others injured in a pre-dawn attack in northwest Pakistan. The militants targeted a police station in the Darabad region of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. The attack began around 3 a.m. local time with a sniper fire, and the attackers subsequently entered the police station. This incident adds to the escalating violence as the country approaches general elections later this week. President Nayib Bukele secured a landslide victory in the Salvador's national elections, with preliminary results indicating he claimed approximately 85% of the votes. As reported by officials, Bukele was widely expected to win another 5 terms. Despite concerns about potential erosion of democracy, voters largely favored him, acknowledging his administration's aggressive measures against gangs, which resulted in improved security in the Central American country. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who is anticipated to seek another term in the upcoming elections, expressed confidence on Sunday that the people in power would emerge victorious. The specific date for elections has not been set yet, but they are expected to take place later this year. The death toll from the weekend inferno that engulfs hilltop neighborhoods in coastal region of central Chile has reached 122 Chilean. Chilean President Gabriel Boric stated that the fire in Valparaiso is a serious emergency, the most catastrophic in the country since the earthquake of 27 February 2010.
And finally, at the end of our news bulletin, we leave you with this video of Moroccan dissident officer Salih Bouchaib, in which he discusses unchanged living conditions in Morocco since the 1960s, prompting his desertion from the army. He revealed the use of security headquarters for drug and human trafficking. In the social media viral video, the officer, with 20 years of service, cautioned Moroccans against the consequences of normalizing ties with the Zionist entity, branding it as betrayal to the nation, people, and a means to exploit the country's resources, leading to more oppression. Enjoy the watch and take care.
بعد وقف إطلاق النار سنة 1991 بقيت في الوحدة، بقاو خلانا في الوحدات حتى لسنة 94 خوفا من الرجوع أو اختراق وقف إطلاق النار باش يحافظوا على الضباط اللي عندهم تجربة. من بعد ملي تأكدوا بأن وقف إطلاق النار ساري المفعول، ومع الأحداث اللي وقعت في مع الأحداث اللي وقعت في المغرب، الأحداث اللي كان واحد التغير سياسي اللي بدات فيه القضيه نتاع المصالحه المعارضه مع النظام. وهنا هذا الحديث هذا اثر فيه. علاش؟ لان كانت عندنا كجنود وكمواطنين مغاربه كان عندنا امل في تلك المعارضه لتغيير النظام. ومن بعدها انتقلت المقر العام تاع طنجة سنة 97، ونفس الأمور، لا أوضاع سياسية تغيرت، لا أوضاع اجتماعية تغيرت، لا أوضاع حتى الحقوق المدنية والسياسية للمواطنين ما كاينينش. من بعدها انتقلت لطنجة. انتقلت سنة 99، وفي هذه الفترة توفى الحسن الثاني. وملي توفى الحسن الثاني جاء محمد السادس وكان كيجي لطنجة. وطنجة كما قلت لكم قبيله كان مقر لتهريب المخدرات وتهريب المواطنين وتهريب البشر وتهريب العملة الصعبة. نفس الأوضاع اللي عشناها في الستينات هي اللي في الألفينات هي اللي الآن درك. نفس الأوضاع، ما تغيرت حتى شي حاجة في البلاد. جميع البلدان تقدموا، بعض الدول الأفارقة اللي كنا كنقولوا دول الافارقه تقدموا وتقدموا بمجالات بزاف المجالات، حتى المجالات الحقوقيه تقدموا فيها. وفي هذه الفتره ملي شفت بان ما كاينش امل في التغير، ما كاينش امل في تغيير هذا النظام الغشيم، سنه 2000 قررت ننشق دون رجعه، وسمحت في ولادي وسمحت في داري وسمحت في كلش، وجيت بحالي والتزمت للصمت الى حدود اليوم، الى حدود هذه الايامات، بعد ما شفت الحدث تاع التطبيع. والحدث التطبيع هو خيانه للشعب وخيانه للامه. وعلى لسان بعض الناس اللي كانوا من المتطبعين، واللسان اللي كانوا الناس كيغنيوا بالتطبيع، منهم الصحفيه شاما اللي قالت بان هذا التطبيع اسرائيل ما ديرش تطبيع، على لسان دافيد غوفرين. ما معترفينش اسرائيل، ما معترفه كلام تطبيع لا والو، ما معترفاش وما عمرها تعترف، وما كاين ما عاد ما تعاونك. جابت هذا التطبيع جاب غير الذل والمهانه والعار للشعب المغربي. جاب هذا التطبيع غيؤدي الى فقدان الخيرات الطبيعيه للبلاد، على فقدان الخيرات البشريه للبلاد، وعلى مزيد من الاضطهاد. والخير دليل هو ما يقع في غزه الان. وعلى هذا الاساس اقول لاخوتي المغاربه واخواتي المغاربه واكواني المغاربه، غنسخر كل وقتي كل طاقتي كل مجهودي لفضح النظام، سواء في الميدان العسكري، في الميدان الاقتصادي، في الميدان الاجتماعي، وفي الميدان السياسي. وان شاء الله ترقبوني عن قريب وكاين معطيات جديده لفضح هذا النظام هذا.
ولا بس هاك الدق بلا قرطاس.